Well, good afternoon. 2 years ago, the city of Indianapolis published a list of properties that had been identified as vacant or abandoned. These properties had redevelopment potential for those neighborhoods, but the structures that stood there had fallen so beyond the point of repair that residents in those neighborhoods were tired. And why wouldn't they be? The residents were tired because they woke up each day and took pride in the upkeep of their homes and their neighborhood. They were tired because for all of their effort that they had put back into the community, it was marred by an eyesore just down the road. And almost 2 years later, many of these abandoned homes, including this one, remain just as they are and just as they were. It's undeniable that when it comes to vacant and abandoned properties, we have to be thoughtful. It is unacceptable to tear down homes that could benefit from rehabilitation, but it's also unacceptable to leave properties in limbo, allowing them to fall further into disrepair and creating neighborhoods that are frustrated and communities that are stalled. That is why from the time this administration took office, we have been singularly focused on discernible progress. Change takes time, but for far too many residents in far too many neighborhoods, they have been waiting for that change for far too long. Earlier this year, we estimated that there are more than 3,200 chronically vacant properties in Indianapolis, and we've used this point in time count as the genesis of our work ever since. In partnership with Renew Indy, the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, and the Department of Treasury, we are using hardest hit funds to demolish over 336 properties. To date, we have addressed 99 properties, like the one we stand in front of today. But there is more work to be done. In addition, as a city, we are also using local funds from the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services to address other abandoned homes that pose a safety risk to the community. So far this year, we have demolished 14 buildings, and we have 50 more properties in progress in that program. More importantly, we are listening to the concerns of neighbors who know better than anyone where abandoned or vacant properties are causing the most problems. Next month, we'll begin demolition of a long-standing eyesore, Shelton Heights, an abandoned trailer park on the west side of Indianapolis. That demolition will include a total of 59 abandoned structures that have vexed that neighborhood for years and made residents feel like their pleas for help were falling on deaf ears. But demolition is only one tool the city has to fight blight. In March, we began working with the Center for Community Progress to assess the opportunities we have to combat vacancy and abandonment while identifying the underutilized tools that the city has had at our disposal for years that continue to be untried and untested. As mayor, I will not tolerate whole portions of our city being left behind. We are committed not just to the demolition of blighted properties, but to the redevelopment and rehabilitation of abandoned properties. Together, we can work to prevent homes from ever falling into this sort of disrepair. In July, we convened a problem properties work group to begin an ongoing dialogue on vacant and abandoned homes. Together, the work group is working to assemble a list of the worst properties and problem property owners on which we'll begin testing the city's unused enforcement tools. In addition, as community partners, we are committed to identifying ways to streamline, share, and report data that we can then use to measure neighborhood health. For too long, bureaucratic silos and one-size-fits-all approach has stalled neighborhood progress. So we stand here today with a renewed commitment to fight against the status quo of indecision. Together, working together, neighborhood by neighborhood, community member by community member, we will break the cycle of frustration and mistrust between neighborhoods and city government, and we will begin to write the next chapter of our city's history, a city where no neighborhood gets left behind. Today is an important day, and the efforts that we make on afternoons like this afternoon, I believe, will be and will continue to help our city move into the 21st century with decent, affordable, and safe homes, great neighborhoods, and a sense of community that Indianapolis so desperately needs in difficult times. I thank you. I'd like to also acknowledge and recognize Deputy Mayor Jeff Bennett, who has taken a leadership role in the area of abandoned properties, and obviously the Vice President of our Marion County, Indianapolis City County Council, Zach Adamson, who represents this district. Representative Adamson, do you have anything you want to add?
Only to say that this is going to be transformational for a lot of the neighborhoods, most particularly in my district. I know surrounding the city's urban core, this will be, from the sounds of it, something that we can really rely on to really move these neighborhoods forward, to make use of the best opportunities and tools that the city has. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this, and I thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions? Well, I'll let Jeff speak specifically to that, but it really does depend on the definition that one uses. Obviously, we created at the beginning of this year a definition that incorporates 3,200 homes. What the definition is that gets you to 6,800, I'm not quite sure. Maybe Jeff can speak to that.
That's part of the challenge that we inherited was different sets of data, different definitions, and so for the purposes of kicking off our work in February and March, we went back to the definition that we were using 10 years ago for abandonment, which was 2 property tax cycles missed, vacancy related to postal service vacancy, and a lack of utility service to a site. Now, you ask any one of our other program partners what the definition is, and it's probably a little bit different. And so the power in the group that we assembled in July, which includes the Treasurer's Office, representation from the City Council, several city departments, City Legal, our program partners in the Indianapolis Coalition for Neighborhood Development, it's getting to a common definition. So that number, there was a point in time count in March. We fully expect to change as the work of our problem properties group progresses. So take that as exactly as it was meant, as the way for us to kick off this long-term conversation on how do we address the problem. You know, some of that depends on what's going on the inside of the house. When you have a house that is, in some cases, 80 years old, there's going to be lead-based paint, there's going to be asbestos, things that need to be abated, which drives up the cost of demolition. So it can be anywhere in the $10,000 to $20,000 to $25,000 range, depending on size and what's going on inside. So first of all, the federal money, that hardest hit money, is grant money that we have, and it's in the range of $3 million that we have to work with. We pledged to tear down 336 properties using that source of money. There is some of that money that is earmarked for acquisition, so we can go buy, in some cases, problem properties. So do we have access to further grant funds? I think that's yet to be established. What we wanted to do and what we needed to do coming in January and February was make sure that we have a process in place to spend the funds that we do have. And what we found was that there was money granted to the city in May of 2014, and there wasn't much of a process in place to get that money spent for the purpose it was earmarked for. So that's what we've done for the last several months, is work with our program partners to get a replicable process in place. And when we demonstrate, I think when we demonstrate some success, it may open doors for additional revenue from various sources.
When will all those houses be down? 36? What's the time?
The timeline is we have to have them down by the end of 2017. So we have a finite period of time to spend the money that we have in hand. And so our highest priority was making sure that we could establish a pipeline, work with our neighborhood partners to identify properties that might be eligible for the program, and then run them through the vetting process to make sure that we could use the funds to do that. And as the mayor said, we've affected, or will have affected, 99 properties at the end of this sort of chapter in spending those funds. So we still have additional properties we need to identify to get into the pipeline to tear down. We have some room to do more.
Are you looking to recycle some of the materials like the aluminum siding here, or any of the interior materials, doors, windows, things like that could be repurposed in rebuilding future homes?
Yeah, that's not something that we've done so far, because we've been a little bit under the gun to get our process in place because the clock is ticking. We lost a little bit of our ability to be strategic in that regard, but as we work through this round, I think there's certainly room in the future to incorporate exactly what you're talking about.
Mayor, on that note, have you considered working with Habitat for Humanity? I don't believe that's happening right now, but if some of the choicer material was recycled or reused, it could rehabilitate more houses.
It's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
For the time being, green space. But what we're trying to avoid is being the worst neighbor on blocks. And as we've found out through just a couple of meetings of our problem properties work group, when you ask neighbors for the properties that drive them the craziest and you look up the ownership, sometimes that's county surplus and city-owned property.
Obviously, I mean, you guys are talking about addressing 336 properties, you mentioned, 3,000 properties. So what is the long-term strategy here? Because part of the fund money is obviously for short-term things.
Demolition is only one tool, as the mayor said. This is the tool that the city has become the best at using over the last 40 years, unfortunately. But when you look at neighborhoods that are undergoing rehabilitation, and two of our program partners are standing right behind Tom, John Hay from Near East Area Renewal, Joe Bowling from Inglewood CDC. When you look at neighborhoods, for example, the ones that Near is working in, there is a market for much earlier intervention than demolition, and that's what we seek to do. So all of the tools that the mayor talked about that have mostly gone unused over the years are the ones that can address a substantial number of the 3,000 that are remaining, because they haven't made it to the point where there's no other alternative besides demolition. So that's what we're going to do in earnest over the next 6 months leading into the General Assembly, is let's test the tools, let's communicate with neighborhoods and tell them what we're doing, and if some of those tools don't work the way they're intended, let's go back to the General Assembly and show them our data.
Is that a plan to ask for money from the legislature?
I don't think we want to ask for anything until we have tried what they've already given us. I think if I was a state legislator, I would be really skeptical of the city saying we need more tools when the city hasn't used the tools that the state's already given.
What are the tools besides demolition?
Well, there are, you've heard discussion of receivership. There are two different models of receivership that are allowed in state code, one of which we used 10 years ago, which was really effective in intervening before a property needed to be demolished. There's a new receivership tool that was created just a couple years ago that I think we would like to see how that might be used. It's one of the reasons why our work group is so important. The treasurer's office is represented on that work group, and I know they have concerns as well as the other county commissioners about this new receivership model, so we want to work through that. There is a tool out there where the city can go in and do repairs to houses using CDBG or other local sources of funds. So in essence, a property that has health violations or unsafe building violations, we can go in and spend money on it and make the property, bring the property into compliance, and then determine how to reuse the property, whether it's find a new owner or work with an existing owner who now has a property that no longer is in court. And there's a list beyond that in the Center for Community Progress. The majority of their work was done helping us assess each of those tools for its potential effectiveness, and so that's what we want. That's what we want to start testing out.
As far as abandoned properties, the ones you're actually demolishing, what is the long-term strategy you've got in mind for putting those back onto the property tax rolls and stuff back?
Right. So I think these also fall into those unused tools. So the city has the ability to sell a property like this one as a side lot to an abutting property owner. The city has the ability to work with program partners to facilitate acquisition at a really low cost for new construction. Not every neighborhood is going to be able to afford new construction. The market is different neighborhood by neighborhood. And so we want to make sure that we're tailoring a reuse strategy to fit the neighborhood in which the property is located. We've kind of seen this one-size-fits-all approach that doesn't quite work that way when you're talking about real estate and real estate markets. So I think, we have the ability, on the Far East Side, we're working on a house right now that has been vacant for 7 years, that the neighborhood says, tear it down, tear it down, tear it down. What I really think the neighborhood means is do something to this house, please. And so we're working with a community development partner and with the county commissioners to get the property and bring some rehab funds to it so it doesn't have to be torn down. It'd be the only house in that subdivision that would be demolished, and we don't want to begin the dominoes falling in that way. So it is by no means a one-size-fits-all approach. It's very much listening to neighbors and listening to our community development partners to have a strategy that fits the needs.
Follow-up, Bill, you work with Habitat for Humanity to get the architectural council going.
I think it's a great idea. We work with Habitat for Humanity now, so it would make sense to continue to work with Habitat for Humanity to expand our relationship.
I checked with him, the resort manager wasn't aware of that, but he's for it.
Yeah, that's great.
Mayor Hogsett, you had mentioned in your campaign to kind of combine this issue with helping teachers afford housing. Is there any kind of movement on that?
Yeah, that's another part of it. That's another tool, by the way, using currently owned properties by the city and most appropriately known as the former land bank, now under new title. Using those properties and as an incentive for educators to come work at IPS so that they can avoid a mortgage payment on top of student loans. So all of that we see as another tool in the many arsenals to take care and attract quality educators and at the same time help restore and renew our neighborhoods. Thank you all very much. I know it's hot out here today, so we'll let you go. Thank you.